Samir's cousins in Germany are watching on Skype, so I don't know. We'll just make our way through it. We flip-flopped the order a little bit. I didn't welcome you, so thank you for coming. We're all not glad for why you're here, but we're glad that you're here. And we'll just move on with our program. Do people have programs? There are more up here, and feel free to, whatever. If you need to get up and get a program, don't stand on ceremony. Samir's friend of many, many years, Charlie Cambria, is here, and between the two of us, we're going to do some readings and share some recollections, and also read some pieces of memories that Samir's siblings sent over from Sarajevo, because it is just way too far to come in order to get back for the official funeral on Tuesday in Sarajevo, which Kaya and I will be at. So, Charlie, want to come on up?
Hi, my name is Charlie Cameron. As Jen said, I'm a friend of Samir's. We met when he first moved here to Boston at the Meridian Hotel while I was a concierge and Samir was a bellman. And we hit it off right away. I want to thank you all for coming to share in the remembrance of Samir. I want to express my condolences and deep sympathy to his friends here today and to his family both here and back in Sarajevo. Samir had a love for life, and I'm all sure you all knew that. He enjoyed life to the fullest, and that is something we both have in common, and why his passing is so hard for us all to understand and comprehend. This love for life included a love for adventure and for travel. When I stopped to think of all the different places we had traveled or I had gone to visit him, it brought back so many memories. Florida to see his little brother, Amr, many years ago. Arizona, Las Vegas, Seattle, when he was working in cable with his little red truck. Actually, it wasn't Seattle, it was Tacoma, which I would always tease Samir about because he had trouble saying Tacoma with his accent back then. Also Bermuda for his first vacation in a long time. Chicago to see a Jimmy Buffett concert. We always laugh when we were together. Always. This is why his passing again is so hard to understand and comprehend. I cannot tell you how many times we talked about the two of us going to visit his family and staying at their place on the Var. One of the last times we spoke, he was telling me in detail what a typical day on Var would consist of. All of the last times we spoke together, he gushed over and over of his love and adoration for his daughter, Kaya. He was a proud and loving father, again, so hard to comprehend and to understand. Samir had been through so much in his life. I knew early on that he had been through far more by the time he was 23 than I might have to deal with my whole entire life. I always admired and had the utmost respect for him for this. I was admittedly the stupid American, as he liked to call me. I had lived a sheltered life here in the United States while Samir had to deal with the ugliness of war back in Sarajevo in his earlier days. The details of these he had shared with me over the years, and it always amazed me that he wasn't more affected by them. Well, I guess after all he was. I and many here will probably go the rest of our lives haunted by the thoughts that we could have done something to keep Samir here with us longer. However, we will all have to find comfort in the fact that Samir is finally in the loving arms of his mother again, and that his daughter Kaya is in the very loving and capable arms of her mother. Samir, you are very much loved, and you will always be missed.
Samir has one sister and two brothers. They have a very spread out ages in his family. Samir is the second of the four. So his older brother Almir, who might or might not be able to see this, so if I mess up your age, sorry, but I will guess down, is about 45. And Samir was 41. And Amr just turned 28, and Amina, the baby, the one girl, is 18 and is a freshman at University of Sarajevo now, studying civil engineering. And she sent this remembrance of one of her older brothers, of Samir, and asked me to read it to you guys. So, Amina writes, "Since I'm the youngest in our family, I don't have a lot of memories of Samir. Almir was always the brother who came to Bosnia or Croatia every year, but somehow Samir was the brother that I always wondered and thought about. I think it was because I've always been compared to Samir through the years, a lot. My father always found new points on which to compare me to him. Sometimes it was my looks, and sometimes it was my habit, but mostly it was the things I did and the same interests we had. So I always thought that Samir was the brother I knew better because I felt even more mentally connected to him than to Almir. A few days ago, Jen told me that Samir had these Converse All-Star sneakers that he wore during the war in Bosnia and Herzegovina. They were yellow. Yes, they were, past tense. You know why? Because he has the same crazy ideas I do. One winter, during the war in Bosnia, they got so wet he put them in the oven so that he could dry them, and of course they melted. I laughed so hard at that story, knowing that I would probably do the same thing. I have 3 pairs of Converse All-Star sneakers at this very moment, and I value them a lot more than I did before I heard the story. Through my childhood, I remember Samir as the older brother who rarely came because he lived pretty far away from us. But sometimes I thought that he was the brother I had more connection to than Almir, my other faraway brother in Germany. I was constantly reminded how alike we were, and I always wanted to know more about my older brother Samir. It's sad that we didn't see each other a lot, but the thing is, he was constantly in my head for all these years, even though I didn't see him as much as I saw Almir. And I know that will never change. He was, he is, and he will always be on my mind." So, that's what So, if you're here, chances are you knew him, unless maybe you knew Kaya, and not as much her dad, like Mr. Bransfield, but probably you know that he was not a very religious guy. However, at the time that he passed away, he did have a Quran with him, and he was reading it, and he had Kaya's picture tucked inside, and Anita, one of Kaya's lovely babysitters, is going to read a little bit from that page where Kaya's picture was. So, sorry English speakers, it's in Bosnian, but there you go.
Thank you.
Ima onih koji dolaze da te slušaju, ali čim se od tebe udalje, pitaju one kojima je dano znanje. Šta ono malo prije reče? To su oni čija je srca Allah zapečatio i koji se za strastima svojim povode. A oni koji su na pravom putu, on će i dalje voditi i nadahnut će ih kako će se vatri sačuvati. Zar oni čekaju da im smak svijeta iznenada dođe, a već su predznaci njegovi tu? A šta će im koristiti opomena kad im on dođe? Znaj da nema Boga osim Allaha. Traži oprosta za svoje grijehe i za vjernike i vjernice. Allah zna kud se krećete i gdje boravite.
Samir's favorite author was the American writer Ernest Hemingway, whom he first read in translation in Serbo-Croatian or Bosnian, and later read in English after he had learned English. This was his copy of the collected short stories of Hemingway, and he liked a lot of these, but here's one that he liked that's quite short, so I'm going to read it to you. It's 2.5 pages long. It's from the time that Hemingway and one of his friends were in Italy, around the time of World War II, so 70 some odd years ago. And it's titled in Italian, it's called Che ti dice la patria, which means, what does the homeland say to you? And I put it in the, did I write it in the program? I didn't. Hold on, I have to read my note. After I read the story, I could immediately see why it appealed so much to Samir. So when I read it to you, imagine Samir not in the shoes of Hemingway, who is the protagonist in the story and who's writing about his personal experience, but imagine him as the young guy that they pick up and give a ride to. I thought it was very Samir. Okay. The road of the pass was hard and smooth and not yet dusty in the early morning. Below were the hills, with the oak and chestnut trees, and far away below was the sea. On the other side were snowy mountains. We came down from the pass to a wooded country. There were bags of charcoal piled beside the road, and through the trees we saw charcoal burners' huts. It was Sunday, and the road, rising and falling, but always dropping away from the altitude of the pass, went through the scrub woods and through villages. Outside the villages there were fields with vines. The fields were brown, and the vines coarse and thick. The houses were white, and in the streets the men, in their Sunday clothes, were playing bowls. Against the walls of some of the houses there were pear trees. Their branches cantilevered, against the white walls. The pear trees had been sprayed, and the walls of the houses were stained a metallic blue-green by the spray vapor. There were small clearings around the villages where the vines grew, and then the woods. In a village, 20 kilometers above Spezia, there was a crowd in the square, and a young man carrying a suitcase came up to the car and asked us to take him into Spezia. There are only 2 places and they're occupied, I said. We had an old Ford coupe. I'll ride on the outside. You'll be uncomfortable.
That makes nothing. I must go to Spezia. Should we take him? I asked Guy. He seems to be going anyway, Guy said. The young man handed in a parcel through the window. Look after this, he said. 2 men tied his suitcase on the back of the car, above our suitcases. He shook hands with everyone, explained that to a fascist and a man as used to traveling as himself, there was no discomfort, and climbed up on the running board on the left-hand side of the car, holding on inside, his right arm through the open window. You can start, he said. The crowd waved. He waved with his free hand. What did he say? Guy asked me. That we could start. Isn't he nice? Guy said. The row followed a river. Across the river were mountains. The sun was taking frost out of the grass. It was bright and cold and the air came through the open windshield. How do you think he likes it out there? Guy was looking up the road. His view out of his side of the car was blocked by our guest. The young man projected from the side of the car like the figurehead of a ship. He had turned his coat collar up and pulled his hat down, and his nose looked cold in the wind. Maybe he'll get enough of it, Guy said. That's the side our bum tire's on. Oh, he'd leave us if we blew out, I said. He wouldn't get his traveling clothes dirty. Well, I don't mind him, Guy said, except the way he leans out on the turns. The woods were gone. The road had left the river to climb. The radiator was boiling. The young man looked annoyedly and suspiciously at the steam and rusty water. The engine was grinding, with both Guy's feet on the first-speed pedal, up and up, back and forth and up, and finally out level. The grinding stopped, and in the new quiet there was a great churning bubbling in the radiator. We were at the top of the last range above Spezia and the sea. The road descended with short, barely rounded turns. Our guest hung out on the turns and nearly pulled the top-heavy car over. You can't tell him not to, I said to Guy. It's his sense of self-preservation. The great Italian sense. The greatest Italian sense. We came down around curves through deep dust, the dust powdering the olive trees. Spezia spread below along the sea. The road flattened outside the town. Our guest put his head in the window. I want to stop. Stop it, I said to Guy. We slowed up at the side of the road. The young man got down, went to the back of the car and untied the suitcase. I stop here so you won't get into trouble carrying passengers, he said. My package. I handed him the package. He reached in his pocket. How much do I owe you? Nothing. Why not? I don't know, I said. Then thanks, the young man said. Not thank you, or thank you very much, or thank you 1,000 times, all of which you formerly said in Italy to a man when he handed you a timetable or explained about a direction. The young man uttered the lowest form of the